Hey everybody, welcome back to the Level Up podcast. I'm your host, Ken Rose, co-founder and CTO at Ops Level. Ops Level is an internal developer portal that helps engineering teams quickly ship quality software. Our Level Up podcast explores challenges, best practices, and stories from some of the brightest engineering and DevOps leaders about what it takes to build great products, teams, and companies. Today, I am thrilled to be here with Shadi Rostami, Senior and Executive Vice President of Engineering at Amplitude. Amplitude is a digital analytics platform that helps companies build amazing products, drive growth, and win their categories. The platform gives self-service visibility into the entire customer journey. Amplitude has over 700 people and over 1,900 customers, including NBC Universal, PayPal, Shopify, and one of my favorite ops level customers, Under Armour. Prior to joining Amplitude, Shadi was at Palo Alto Networks for 11 years, rising the ranks of engineering leadership. She has a diverse array of experience and has led teams across disciplines including distributed systems, cloud computing, security, big data, machine learning, and a whole bunch of others. Shadi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, Kenna. Thank you so much for having me and your team. Very excited to be having this conversation with you and your audiences today.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what got you excited about joining Amplitude back in the day and what you folks are doing at Amplitude now?
Yes, I joined Amplitude almost 4 years ago, April 1st of 2019. And one thing that got me excited about joining Amplitude, because I believe that in this era, success of a company depends on how good their product is. Products makes or breaks. It used to be a lot about sales or marketing, and I really believe that this is a product-led era. And Amplitude builds a tool that helps companies build better products. So that was the mission that really got me excited. And I always say that if we do our job well, we can help our fellow engineer and product management do their job more efficiently and work smarter rather than work harder. So got me very excited to be joining Amplitude. It's been an amazing 4 years. We have gone through many different stages. The company has grown and scaled. And in 2021, at the end of 2021, we went into public market with direct listing. We have built a number of different products. So it's been an amazing and a very fulfilling journey so far for me at Amplitude.
Definitely. Watching from the outside, the journey of Amplitude and its growth has been incredible. I guess a lot of today might be somewhat meta in the sense that I'd love to learn about Amplitude is there to help, product companies build better products. I'd love to learn about how how the sausage is made, I guess, and how Amplitude builds its own product. Can you talk to me a little bit about, how you think about team structure in Amplitude, specifically like product development teams, and how they can have some notions of end-to-end ownership?
Yes, actually, one of the other major reasons that I joined Amplitude was about the culture of Amplitude, because it was important that I'm aligned with the culture of Amplitude. And one of the important elements of our culture is our ownership. I really believe in people having a high level of ownership, and I see that, and we practice it all the time in engineering. We believe in engineers owning the end-to-end product experience. By that, it means that we don't have a separate QA team, or we don't have a separate DevOps team necessarily. We have engineers build their product, they test it, we run it in production, and we carry pagers, or we get on call if there is a problem with our software. So that was very, very important, and that's how we have built the team. Another aspect of ownership is that we are building product to serve our customers. So it's very important for engineers to get on customer calls and hear firsthand about the excitement, the challenges that the customers are facing. So that's also very important. But also, alongside qualitative data and meeting with customers, it's also important that we have quantitative data. So we are instrumenting on product all the time. We look at people interaction, we look at successes, the conversions, and we look at the failures to help us constantly improve and make our product better.
That's amazing. What are some ways that you found that are useful to help reinforce that culture of ownership? Because I can imagine it's not something that happens by accident, and something that needs leadership and guidance.
Yeah, I think it's very important that you define what is your priority and constantly practice it. So one basic example is that we have every other week we have PD all hand, and we have recognition. We recognize people who are showing these values, and we show that the value that people are doing it. The other element that can help is people leading by examples. We have a number of people who are in the company for a long time. And I always say leaders are not just the people manager. We have a lot of technical leaders in the company. And these people are showing by example how they care about product and how they care about customer experience. That becomes basically interwoven into the culture of the company. But also there are some practices we need to, I say that the engineering teams need to get on a customer call once a month, or maybe even further than that. That's the practices that we follow, we look at, that helps us to basically make sure that we are doing that. And another aspect is that, you're on call. There's rotation, that you have to be on call. And if you're thinking about, I'm operating my product and I don't want to get paged in the middle of the night, so I make sure as I'm developing it, I'm thinking about corner cases and so on. So all of this come together to create that culture of ownership within the engineering team.
It's amazing. One kind of issue that comes up, right, when folks go on call is sometimes there'll be engineering issues that come up that necessitates engineering work that needs to be done, whether it's scaling or refactoring, and that can push up against, kind of product priorities and existing product deliverables. How do you sort of think about resolving that product and engineering tension?
Yeah, I think it's always people say that there is this fight between the product and engineering, and how do you resolve that? So I think there's a very important aspect to be thinking about, that when you think about the product, there are some functional requirements and there are some non-functional requirements. These are all product requirements. When I think about it, having a feature, having a button on the page is a functional requirement. But how you scale, what is the usability of your product, what does your uptime look like? These are very important product aspects. So it's not just engineering. That's what it's important that the entire team think about, both functional and non-functional requirement. And one thing that I always ask my team, for example, we do quarterly planning and we look at it, and I ask them, how much time are you spending on keeping the lights on or handling issues? And if the percentage is way too off, basically they're spending a lot of time, we need to be thinking about, okay, what investment are you doing to reduce that time? So depending on different products are different stages, different level of maturity, different scale requirement. So I think it's very, very important to be thinking about all of those things. And I have one thing that I always say, that if the scale of your product increases by an order of magnitude, you probably need to re-architect your product. So you need to be always thinking about it. That is now 10 times more data needs to go to there. I need to be thinking about, am I hitting the limit of the product? And do I need to think about, I need to re-architect this product? I also say something along the side, if the team size double, you have to re-architect your team, because that's another area that what you had before might not be working anymore.
Definitely. Do you have any examples of times maybe when you've learned that lesson the hard way, that either a team size scaled or the kind of volume of data through a pipeline scaled, and the team didn't do that necessary re-architecture?
Yeah, I've had a lot of exciting stories. We were pushing the limits. We actually, a lot of time, you push on the limits, and then you realize that, oh, okay, this is becoming tough and we need to add re-architect pieces. But sometimes you think about it when it's actually happening. So you're developing and you're re-architecting while you're getting paged in the middle of the night because you're hitting those limitations. And these are very tough time to go through. But the reality is that many times you've done that, because a lot of time you have so many other things that you're working. And even if in theory you say we want to prioritize this longer term, but you never got to prioritize it until it becomes really waking up people in the middle of the night. So then you start working on that, and then you realize, okay, until this development is done and gone to production, now I have to make sure I keep the lights on. So that's a very, very tough spot to be in. So you learn as you practice. You go through some of this time. Next time around, maybe you do it a little bit earlier. But there's always going to be tough time as you're going through that.
I'm always reminded of that John Allspot quote, right? Incidents are unplanned investments. And so it's sort of like the good forcing function to do a lot of that engineering work. But sometimes that can be more painful. But there's that trade-off of like, well, we could have done it earlier, but we also have these product deliverables that we had underway.
Yeah, and I think it's always a balance, right? You can never find the perfect balance. One thing that I think is very important, I said about everything, it's important to be intentional and make a decision that intentionally I'm investing in this, or intentionally I am making not an investment here. And I know it might come and haunt me, but for these reasons I'm making that intentional decision. So when the team's thinking about that and when they're empowered to do that, they actually know that they're taking chances and they're taking risks. And sometimes you take calculated risk because of some features that you need to add, and sometimes you decide I'm going to push down on this feature because this is very, very important.
I really love that observation about like almost making your decisions explicit. Can you talk a little bit maybe if there's any processes or structures in Amplitude to help like kind of codify the explicitness of those decisions? Like how do you encourage teams to be explicit as opposed to implicit in how they're making decisions?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have, we really believe in decision making at the lower end, at the people on the ground, people making decisions. And every team have their own rituals, but we also have the quarterly review with the leadership. So each team is coming up and saying, okay, these are the priorities that I'm taking on for this quarter. And they kind of, talk about what are their functional requirements they're trying to handle, how do they think this is going to move their outcome and their metrics, what is the expectation, and what are they prioritizing. They talk about how much of their time are spending on their, keeping the lights on versus developing features. All of these come together, and based on that, they explain these are the decisions that they're making, and they're setting up for this quarter as they're going, and they're setting up their goals. And every week we actually review both our goals, our product goals, that we wanted to move these metrics. Every week we're reviewing how well the metrics are moving. We are also reviewing our SOO, the standard operating metric. These are the things that needs to be, always in a green basically level. So we look at, okay, what is the number of on-call issues that we have had, how many P1 or P0 bugs have we had, and every team have defined these metrics that they're following. And then sometimes you realize that, okay, the on-call issues have gone to red, so this is a time that we need to maybe slow down on some of development and spend more time on some of these areas. Teams have, other companies use the error budget, right? You basically consume your error budget. So we follow similar models.
Awesome. And that becomes then the ripcord to say like, hey, right now we need to stop and start investing more in engineering work. I love that description, because it sounds also then at the product level and the objective level, there is that kind of ownership on the ground, right? For how products should be delivered.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I think is very important for us, we believe in a triad when we think about our team. We have product, design, and engineering leaders. They're all responsible for their area, and they have the same goals. So it's not that the product people have one goal and the engineering team have a different goals, and they're hitting heads, and no, they have the same goals. And the goals is not necessarily about shipping features and product. It's about moving the outcome and thinking about how we are operating that. And a number of times when you're deciding that, okay, I want to move these metrics, I want to increase my weekly active users. That's the goal that I have, for example. And you basically, we call it, you need to save and deliver a number of features to achieve that. And we call it bets. And many times you deliver those bets and it moves the needle, wonderful. Sometimes you deliver bets and it doesn't move the needle. So you have to go back to the drawing board and say, what did we learn here? Do that iterative process. But it's both the product and engineer are thinking about it. So it's not that engineers say, oh, I delivered my feature, my work is done, but the product people say that the metrics didn't move. It's their goal. The same way about the operational excellence. This is the expected operation. This is the uptime that is expected. This is the number of allowed on-call incident that is allowed. And when any of them changes or any of them goes into the red territory, it's responsibility of all of them. And then that's how it gets them to reprioritize and think about the work in progress.
That sounds amazing. That's almost a silo busting technique, right? We talked about product engineering tension. You eliminate the tension by making product sort of responsible for what was classically engineering concerns and engineering responsible for product outcomes.
Absolutely. I think that's so important to have them own the entire thing together.
Yeah. I'd love to dive into more about like when we talk about end-to-end ownership, right? We've talked about, you build it, you own it, right? You're going on call for it, you're fixing issues with it, you're responsible for scaling. How do you think about kind of leverage in that though, right? Like, there's a limit maybe to you building on. You don't want every team reinventing the wheel and setting up their own CI systems. Like, where does sort of cross-cutting concerns or kind of platform engineering concerns sort of fit in at Amplitude?
Yes, that's a very good point. Actually, at Amplitude, we have teams that we call them vertical teams. They're delivering features that are impacting our customer directly. And then we have a number of teams that we call them they're horizontal teams. That they are the majority of the users are actually Amplitude engineering team or Amplitude product teams. So these horizontal teams are trying to basically build the infrastructure that are common. So as you said, so that people are not reinventing the wheels, and everybody needs a build system, so you don't have to have everybody have a different build system, right? Thinking about the common things that needs to be serving everybody that in this platform team. And so that's one area. But I think one thing that is important as you're developing, as a team grows and you're developing multiple products or multiple features, different products might be at different stage of maturity, and you need to be thinking about what am I optimizing in this product at this stage of maturity of the product. A product that is very early on in their stage of maturity, the most important thing might be speed. It's so important, the speed. So if that team needs to build a caching system to get their job faster, they're going to go build it themselves. They're not going to go back to a horizontal team and ask them to build the same, because it's going to slow them down. But there are teams that are maybe more advanced in their maturity, and now it's important that they're relying on a number of services that are in this horizontal level, so that they can operate. The operational excellence is done well. They can operate with more efficiencies. And then it's also possible a brand new product can get a lot of benefit from the things that are in the platform level, definitely. But I want to make sure, again, going back to be intentional and making explicit decision. I think it's important for a team to know what am I optimizing at this stage of my product, and then decide, okay, which services from the platform team I can get benefit, and what are the things that it doesn't exist and I'm gonna go build it myself if needed. And then think about, as you go further, how do I push these services into more platforms so other people can get benefit from that as well.
In terms of like leverage today at Amplitude, how does that sort of work? Like, is there a lot of new products that are kind of always being created, so teams are choosing their own path, or is there a more established kind of golden path that like teams already have this built up set of caching and infrastructure and CI/CD and like existing toolkit that they can go out and build against?
Yeah, we have quite a number of them already built. So, we have a number of them that are built. As I said, our horizontal pillar are very well staffed. Of course, it's never well staffed. We always can do more people, but we have good investment in them. But there are teams there are some projects that are going faster, so they might have some requirement for some areas that they need to build them themselves. So it's there's a lot of infrastructure teams, and a number of them, but there are still some teams that might need to go and build things on their own, especially if they're going to a different space or different areas that they might not be already in our infrastructure pieces.
That makes sense. I was wondering if you could talk about any sort of investments that Amplitude makes in developer experience. How do you ensure that developers can get up to speed quickly, can find the context that they need? Because I can imagine, with 700 people, it's a pretty massive architecture with a lot of moving parts and a lot of data flowing through the system. So how do you ensure that the developers have access to the context they need, and a new Amplituder can get up to speed quickly?
Yes, actually, that's an important area, and I have to say we have to do a lot more better in there. This is an area that I think I would always say that we should get better in there. But when we were doing planning this year, one of the we defined some of our important objectives for the year, what we want to improve, what are the product improvement that we need to do, what area we are going after. But one of the areas that we identify at the at the product development goals for the year is improving developer experience, because that's very important as the company is growing, and we're getting a lot of new people in, and there is still a lot of heroism going on. People are jumping and solving that, and we need to get better, and we need to improve our developer experience. One other thing that I think is important is that as you think about, because one of our principles in engineering is ship fast. Velocity is very important for us, but as the product grows and the team grows, to achieve shipping fast and have the high velocity, it's important that you have built some of the infrastructure pieces to improve developer experiences, so that people are not afraid of touching that piece of code because they feel like it's going to break, and so on and so forth. But to be very honest with you, we have a long way to go, so I cannot say we are golden standard of developer experience.
That's fair. I guess for other engineering leaders, what are some things that you look at as challenges that exist in the developer experience? Like, how do you sort of know, like, yeah, we need to invest more here? What are some of the smells or symptoms that you're seeing in the org that make you realize, like, it actually is now a time to start investing more in DevX?
Yeah, you look at the DORA metrics. You look at what are the failure rates that are happening, and how are we comparing to what standards is, and you feel like, okay, I'm behind there. But one thing that is important, one of the things about a number of these horizontal teams, whether it's a developer experience, or a platform team, or some of our infrastructure team, it's important that we have top-down direction that we're investing in them, but it cannot be all top-down. So I always tell them that who's your champion if as you're building this team? What are the vertical teams that are adopting some of the best practices that you're offering? Who is the champion that can go and talk to the rest of the organization? Because it cannot be top-down, Shadi coming and saying we have to invest here. It's very important that people see the value that they're getting. Okay, so this team come and tell the story that I adopted this practice, or I adopted this tool that was built by our platform team, and that's how it helped me reduce my my failure rates. And then other team can think about it. At the same time, at a high level, I set the goals on failure rate. You have to improve your failure rate of your product. You can decide whether to adopt the techniques that are provided to you as a team, or you can build your own if you want. But I think these are the metrics that I will be looking and thinking about, how the team is doing. So it's a very mix. It's not completely top down, and it's not only bottoms up. It's a mix of that is important if you want to make that change and make sure that the team is operating and thinking about developer experience. One other thing that might be a little bit tangible, but not exactly the same, but it's about how do you enable the rest of the company, so not just the developers. So let's take an example. We have a data team, and in a company, and we are providing answer to data question for other teams. We can build a simple dashboard. People come and ask their questions and get that answer right away. But then they want to ask the next question or more sophisticated question. They have to come back to us and ask us. So we're becoming constant point of answering question in the middle of all the decision making. Instead of building that or operating that model, you want to be operating in a model that I'm enabling people to answer their question in a self-serve way. So going with that mindset overall is that how am I enabling, whether a horizontal pillar enabling the vertical pillar, vertical team to answer self-serve, or engineering enabling the whole company to answer their issues self-serve is an important part that I think can improve efficiency in the organization significantly.
I love that. As you were talking earlier about like kind of platform teams, and it can't just be this top down. I kept thinking about what you're saying is you want your platform team to essentially be a product team. You want them to cultivate their users' journeys, right? And their users are those vertical teams. And you want to build in the same way like you as a company are trying to build champions with your users. You want your platform teams to build champions with their users, right? The people who will be using the technology they build. And similarly for the data teams you were describing as well, right? In terms of enabling the rest of the company to self-serve questions. You have to treat it in almost a very product-oriented mindset of what is the problem that these folks have? What's the solution I'm generating for them? Can they actually use the solution by themselves so that they're not just you're giving people or you're teaching them how to fish. You're not just giving them a fish.
Absolutely. I think it's so important that we think about how you said very well. You teach them how to fish rather than giving them a fish. And the example that I always use with the platform team is that what are the thank you notes that you collected from the rest of the rest of the engineering team? That tells how happy your customers are with you. These are your customers, right? How are you doing? And the same way, we are building a product, and the product is supposed to help other companies, other data leaders to enable the rest of their company to be self-serve. So what are the thank you notes we're collecting from our customers? I was on a call with some customer, and they were saying they were getting so much value, and that was the ultimate happiness for me. So it's the same analogy, absolutely, as you discussed.
That's amazing. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about ways that data has helped internally at Amplitude, right? Like you folks build this product that allows for events and analytic tracking. How much do you sort of dog food your own product, and how do you utilize Amplitude internally to build better product experiences yourselves?
Yes, that's a very important point. And I think dog fooding is so important because it helps you basically, of course, it helps us make decision based on data. Our goal is to help our customer make decision based on data. We use our product to make sure we are making decision based on data, but also it helps us to see what our customers are experiencing when they're using our product. So we have really first-hand experience of the great, the delightful moment as well as the tension moments that the customer might be facing when they're using our product. For example, one of the areas that we are monitoring is our response time to the queries. We are serving a lot of very sophisticated queries, so our customer might be asking hard questions. So we collect all of that data in Amplitude, and we have a dashboard in the query team that they're coming and looking at, okay, what is the P95 of the response time of these customers, or of all of our customers. And then if they feel like, okay, the numbers are not good, they can go and drill down per customer and understand, okay, what are the P95? So that's how that's a dashboard that they're monitoring to look at the experience that the customer are having on scalability and how well our response time of our product. The same thing, for example, as I mentioned, some of our metrics that we are tracking, that weekly we are going and looking at them. All of these metrics are measured in Amplitude. For example, one of our teams, our analytics team, their North Star is weekly saving users. How many people are saving content in Amplitude? So we are measuring that, and we are looking and saying, okay, what is happening? Is the number going up? Is it not going up? We have this goal. What is the reason that the number is not going in the right direction? And what changes can we do in the product? Are people getting, we look at the funnel that the customer are going through. Are they getting blocked somewhere in the product that can help them? So all of using that is help us create the best experience for our customer. The same way that we want our customers to build best experience for their users, we are using Amplitude to make sure that we are creating the best experience. And we really believe in that iterative process. Look at the quantitative data and improve the product so that you can create this delightful moment for your customers.
That's amazing. And again, it sounds like it's not just product managers that are looking at this data. It's everybody on each engineering team that's also looking at it to be aligned in terms of like how do they maximize the customer impact.
Absolutely, that's so critical that engineers are using Amplitude, and we also want non-technical people to use Amplitude within Amplitude. So we call it Amplitude on Amplitude. So whether it's our GTM organization, whether it's our customer success, whether it's an account executive, whether it's our SDR, they're all using Amplitude to look at, our customer success, look at Amplitude to see how people are using Amplitude within their accounts. Are they really enjoying it? What are they? What is the persona of people who are using? Are we serving those personas well as a customer success manager? Our SDR thinking about who are the people who are getting value. Maybe I can talk to them about another opportunity or another thing that we have in Amplitude. So all of our different teams are using that. And the good thing is that they have this predefined dashboard that they can come and look at the answers. But then when they want to go deeper and, okay, now I want to change the period of time, or I want to ask a separate question, or I want to analyze, they can do it on their own, even the non-technical people. And that basically create capacity for my team to focus on doing other things rather than answering questions.
That's awesome. Before we wrap up, have there ever been any kind of interesting, product features that came out of the team internally just from dog fooding and realizing like, hey, we face this problem. This might be a problem that our customers face as well?
Yes, a number of them. I think it's very important is that, I was going through this flow, and this thing was very cumbersome, or I had to click so many buttons, or I have to go through that. This was not very easy. I imagine our customers are going through so many challenges, or I ran into, we changed this experience that is different than what it wants to be, and is causing issues. So it's happening all over the place. I cannot give you one example. There's so many places that people are using and getting that. And also, a number of times they go with customer calls and they hear that firsthand from customers.
Yeah, definitely. Customer calls. We have a similar kind of cultural edict at ops level of like, hear from the horse's mouth. Like when a customer tells you the pain that they feel, it drives through all layers of the organization. It gets right down to like an engineer's heart almost. And it's like you can't help but empathize and want to fix that problem for them.
Absolutely. That's so important.
So we're basically at the end of the show, but before we wrap up, I always like to ask, what's your favorite music whenever you want to work to or have some focus time for?
Oh, that's a good question. So I actually listen to Leonard Cohen a lot.
Oh, nice.
Yes, it's calming and it gets me be in the zone. I also listen to a lot of pop music, and also I'm Persian, so I listen to a number of Persian music, and so there's very variety of music that I would be listening to.
That's awesome. And Shadi, what's the best way for people to follow you or your work on social media?
I think LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best one that people can follow and see what we're doing, what Amplitude is doing, and what my team is doing.
Perfect. Well, everyone, feel free to follow Shadi on LinkedIn. We're going to be including all of your contact information there in the show description below. Today we had the wonderful opportunity to talk about Amplitude, how end-to-end ownership, end-to-end product ownership works, platform engineering, data engineering, and also the importance of dog fooding. So Shadi, it has been absolutely great having you on, and I really appreciate your time and getting to talk to all of us and all of our listeners. And thank you to everyone for listening and making it to the end of the show. If you have any other topics or guests that you'd like to see on the show, please send us an email at levelup@opslevel.com, and we'll see everybody next time. Happy building.
Thank you so much.